Hey guys, thank you so much again for joining me tonight. As you know, it is the day of reconciliation here in South Africa, and I really wanted to take a very different twist to this issue or this celebration. Let me not call it an issue just yet, because maybe it isn't. We're so used to issues. But guys, really, I wanted to talk about, the whole fact that reconciliation in this country means so many different things to so many different people. And one of the things that we don't realize is that reconciliation really to blacks means something else, to whites means something else. But what we don't know is that even amongst us as Africans, as blacks, it means different things. I think one of the saddest things that any I don't want to use the word modern South African, but the Zulus, the Sutus, the Khoisans, what they don't, most of them never want to acknowledge is that we did not originate from South Africa. In fact, we came from the north, and we came as warriors. We were, some of us were, guys, I'm broadcasting from my laptop today, so I'm not saying hi. I'm just dealing with the wasps and the mosquitoes. But we came from the north, and when we came here, guys, we came in invasion style. We invaded what we found, the natives of this land at the time were the Khoisans and the Hottentots, and we really drove them away. They were massacred, they were killed, and a lot of them ended up fleeing. And that is why when you look at the southern tip of South Africa, coming from the Cape, all the way up the northern Cape, towards the end, the tip end of Northwest Province, all the way up to the tip of Botswana, and all the way up to Namibia, you will find the Khoisans, and those were people that were living in this region, because there were no countries at the time. They were living in the southern most region, and when the warriors, the Zulus, came, and the Sutus, and all those different modern day South Africans, when they came, they really invaded the land and took away what those people, even their way of life. So I grieve, because why I grieve at that is that I think sometimes as we forget, and we expect sympathy from Europeans, from the whites, and we forget that we have also invaded this country. And a lot of them, they try to stand up. The reason why their voice is not heard is two things. One, the same way that white people say that, but we were not there when our fathers colonized you and they took the land. We worked for everything. We also were not there when the Khoisans were invaded. In fact, we are like, descendants of descendants of descendants. So we cannot relate to the truth. But remember that in African saying, they say, "Umenzi wakakhohlwa." They will never forget, in the same way that the ancestors of Jan van Riebeck's and them don't relate to this invasion and colonization story, because they are innocent. They work for what they have. We also need to realize that that is the state that we are in. And for me, this is very important, because it shows that there are no holy cows in humanity. One of the arguments that Europeans use when they justify colonialism is they say that even in Africa, we were fighting amongst ourselves. We were colonizing each other. Even them in Europe and everywhere where they've been, they were colonizing each other. They were enslaving each other. They were killing each other. There were wars even amongst each other. So for me, it talks to the fact that I think we need to really start acknowledging that the issue of colonialism, the issue of segregation and race, it's not a racial issue. It really is an economic and a humanity issue. We need to realize that even us as Africans, we are capable of being colonizers. We are capable of ethnic cleansing. We are capable of harming others in the same way that we've been harmed. And if we expect white people to understand our pain, what is so difficult about us understanding the pain of those that we've caused, which are the Khoisans? Many don't believe this, and that is why there's always an argument that we Africans are one, because the Ngunus and Sutus, we all came from up north. That is why our language is the same. That is why if you listen to Silozi, you listen to Swahili, you listen to Yoruba, you listen to any East African and West African language, you'll find it's the same as the Southern African language, and that is why we have Northern Sotho, Southern Sotho, because the Northern Sotho is the Sotho that you'll find north of Limpopo, and the Northern Gulis north of Limpopo, but it's all the same dialect. So we are one people, and we came here. Some of us were running away, and that is why some of us ended up some of us were running away, some of us were exploring the continent, and that is why we ended. And we found natives here, and none of us care to acknowledge us, and a lot of us become defensive when those issues are raised. And I ask ourselves that if we want other people to understand the pain that they've caused us, why is it so difficult for us to understand the pain that we've caused the Khoisans? The Khoisans are almost wiped off the face of the earth now, thanks to us. And the reason why we don't hear their voice, there's so little of them left, because a lot of them ran away, and because they're simple people, and most of them, they live this very basic and native life. They are not involved in the mainstream going ons, and sometimes they'll march to parliament, but they don't even have proper representation as the original natives of this land. And I think that it's very important for us to look into that if we are serious about reconciliation. A lot of us, we know the book Maru, it even talks about how the Botswanas segregated against the Saros, which were sort of like the remnants of the Hottentots, and they looked down on them and saw them as a lesser people than themselves. And that is because, like I'm saying, when you have power and you have resources, you tend to look down on the next person, and that is how it then evolves into racism. But the origin, it's power. The origin is resources, and the moment we acknowledge that colonialism is not a racial issue. We were not colonized because we were blacks. We were colonized because we were an opportunity to save resources and cut costs. And we were also new markets for capitalism in European countries. So I really ask us as Africans in this day of reconciliations, especially South Africans, to really remember that there's African saying says that when you point a one finger, in fact, it's a biblical saying, is it a biblical saying? It's a proverb, maybe. It says, remember when you point at somebody, there's three fingers pointing back at you. And these are some of the fingers that are pointing right back at us. And we need to realize that when white people look at us, they see hypocrites. They see people who invaded others, but yet they're sitting on this holy cow and saying, you guys are so evil, you invaded others, whereas we also invaded others. So I really ask us to read about this, to understand this, and not be defensive, and start talking around how we can turn this around, because it's only when we are a united front as Africans, if we resolve our issues amongst ourselves as Africans, then we can then begin to effectively tackle the issues that we all unitedly have, with the Europeans. But I also think that if we are able to set an example of proper reconciliation, then we will earn more respect from our European counterparts. But right now, we are in so much denial about what a human being is. We believe that only white people are capable of being evil, whereas even us blacks, we are as capable of being evil as the next nation. And that is why we must never be surprised to ask ourselves, why do we end up with African dictators? How can an African put down other Africans, kill other Africans? Look at what's happening in DRC, in Sudan, in Cote d'Ivoire, all over the continent where there is conflict, where there is child labor, where there's all these evils. Yes, the colonialists are involved, but they are using our very same Africans on the ground. And until such time that we acknowledge our own shortcomings as Africans, we will always be going around in circles. That is what the Nubian Crescent is about. It's about the painful truth, but also celebrating the beautiful truths. And unfortunately, today is a day of a painful truth, which we all need to sit, look ourselves in the mirror and extend a hand. Care, ask yourself, want to know more about these people, because they are people, but because they're different from us, they live in the desert, they have thicker skin, shorter hair, bigger bumps, they live a native life. We think, why should we be concerned? They are just there. It's the same way that Europeans felt about us when they came here. They are not human beings, they are subhumans. And if we continue to treat our Khoisans like that, we will continue to be treated like that. And that's just how the way life works. So thank you so much for lending me your ear. You are much loved. Goodbye.